Hello, and welcome to Thought for Your Penny. Today we're going to be covering an issue that's close to my heart, the upcoming ballot to legalize recreational cannabis use in Arizona. So a few things to know about this ballot. It's called the Smart and Safe Act, and it's backed by the Arizona Dispensaries Association, and it also has pretty widespread support across the rest of the cannabis community in the state. So that includes the Marijuana Industry Trade Association, MITA, in Arizona, and also the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, NORML. The details were released August 9th of 2019. The last one was Proposition 205 in 2016. That one failed to pass, but it also had kind of some infighting going on that we'll talk about. Here's everything you need to know about Arizona's 2020 Cannabis Legalization Act. Now, it is listed with the State of Arizona application for serial number initiative petition AR statute 19-111. The serial number was issued I-08 2020. 237,645 signatures are required by July 20th, 2020 for this initiative to go to the ballot. Now, at a top level, there are 6 basic things that it's saying that it does. It successfully removes the existing criminal code for possession, consumption, cultivation, and the sale of cannabis for adults at least 18 years of age in Arizona. It decriminalizes all cannabis offenses. It provides immediate release and post-conviction relief for prior cannabis offenses and/or charges. Prevents the state from conspiring with other governments to enforce cannabis laws. It establishes a sale tax on retail cannabis sales, from which revenue will be allocated to education and the Arizona Health Cost Containment Access Program, and it places cannabis under the Department of Agriculture's jurisdiction. It was filed by Nicole Gallegos on January 14th, 2019. It says the act may be cited as the Arizona Cannabis Justice Act, although the Smart and Safe Act is what it's since come to be known as. And so here are some of the key findings that they placed on the ballot. The general idea is that cannabis has been safely used, marijuana and cannabis. That's a whole other story in Arizona, the difference between the two of them, the legal difference anyway. Points out the states that have already legalized, including Colorado, Washington, Oregon, California, Maine, Massachusetts, Nevada, Alaska, and Washington, D.C. We have explanation of industrial hemp and some of the benefits of the medicinal usage. So one of the things this does is that it fixes the definition of cannabis. This would ensure that the term cannabis, as used in the law, it'll constitute, well, I'll say exactly what it says, all plants of the genus cannabis and any and all parts of such plants, whether growing or not, any and all parts of the plants of the genus cannabis, including but not limited to the flower, leaves, stalk, stem, roots, fiber, and seeds of such plant, the resin and oil extracted from any and all parts of the plants of the genus cannabis, every compound, salt, derivative, mixture, and preparation of the plants of the genus cannabis, any and all substances resulting from the mixture, manufacture, or preparation of the resin, etc., etc., and the cannabinoids, and it lists a few of them. It also talks about cannabis products, cannabis accessories, and some other cannabis information. It discusses what different sizes, what a small farm is, a home grow, and a commercial farm. And then we get into some of the meat of this, which the first part of which is 3-3702, which is the repeal of cannabis prohibition amendments and legalization. And essentially, it is stating that it will repeal a lengthy list of sections that are currently on the books that are prohibiting cannabis, hemp, and other products, marijuana, other things. And then we get into personal cultivation, which is a really interesting part that I love that they stuck in here. So some of the cultivation parts, they are allowing anybody to cultivate cannabis with 1% THC or less, but people under the age of 18 cannot cultivate anything with more than 1% THC. However, people under the age of 18 can work for a business that is doing that, or they can help somebody else. So they can't do it themselves, but they can help you with your own grow. It also states that anybody who's above the age of 18 is authorized to cultivate cannabis without restriction on plant count or THC percentage for personal or commercial use. Small farms are not restricted to a specific number of plants. There should be no limit on the number of cannabis plants, clones, seedlings, and seeds in a home garden, small farm, or commercial grow. And then the person that is growing it can give it away as they see fit, although selling it is where they're going to have to get licenses. Growing is also going to be prohibited within 1,000 feet of a public school, along with anything cannabis related. But schools will have access to cannabis under this law should they choose to, introduce that into their curriculum. So it does make a statement that if you are growing at home, that garden should not be visible from a non-residential ground floor level without the use of some kind of special equipment, which people really shouldn't be using in your house anyway. And then we start getting into some really fun stuff, such as the restrictions on government action, which essentially is prohibiting the government from conspiring against cannabis users or using these lists of cannabis users to in any way harass people. None of those monies from state or federal funds will be used on any kind of a level within the state. And it also stops the local municipality governments from enacting any kind of prohibition. There's a lot of terminology in here that's kind of relieving cannabis users from discrimination for employment, although employees will still have their own choice as to whether or not to allow it on premises or people to be under the influence, whether or not police are able to use THC testing on the spot in the field, and whether or not cannabis use or your medical usage of it is going to disqualify you from certain benefits, which is a really good thing that's helping out. They've really covered a lot of angles here that hit at a lot of the pain points that everybody has been facing, whether they're a licensed dispensary, a grower, or just a patient like me. So local governments are also restricted from enabling or enacting extra taxes or permits and things like that, or specifically targeting the cannabis industry and cannabis businesses with the laws. Oh, another great spot as we scroll down is the gun rights section. So on a federal level, the problem is that if you have firearms and drugs, guns and drugs don't mix as far as the federal level looks at it, and the DEA will definitely get on your case for that. This is one of the sections 3-3709 in the new proposal, where we're finally seeing how purple of a state Arizona is. So we're getting kind of a progressive law, but it's being done in a conservative way, where guns are essentially the usage of guns around cannabis is being decriminalized. Now, this isn't supposed to be like an open invitation for people to start running around getting high and shooting people. The point is that Arizona is already a very pro-gun state. It's a very conservative state. We're quite purple, but it's been historically conservative. So a lot of people are, unable to legally carry their guns that they've already owned prior to getting a medical license or a medical card. And on top of that, dispensaries are finding, a lot of trouble because they can't deposit a lot of cash in banks. There was a lot of issues with that, and it's a high liquidity business, and they can't use weapons to arm everything, so they're constantly being robbed. And so this is kind of a way to help the businesses stay secure within the state, which is a great measure, and kind of puts the local state and local law enforcement in a position where they're protecting our local businesses from federal enforcement for being legal businesses. This also, it's taking some issue with the search and seizure, and how when a government agency decides to take down a legally operating cannabis business, they take quite a bit. They pretty much the biggest gang of the block. So this is kind of stopping them from being able to do that and putting some protections in place. Which again, it's a great thing, and it's great to see that some of the federal constitutional rights are being defended on a state level against the federal agencies that are essentially bullying these businesses. And then we have a section for retroactive application. And then we have a section for retroactive application of the laws. And this is going to apply to everybody who's already sitting in jail, or who has something on their record, some kind of a criminal offense on their record, or has even lost their kids to Arizona Child Protective Services because of a marijuana-related offense. These people will be able to get these records expunged and sealed and move on with their lives for being nothing more than innovators and pioneers in the industry that's going to be legal. Then once we do get to the penalties of people go above what they're allowed to use, which funny enough is an ounce of product, even though you can have however many plants you like. If you go above or if you're under 18 or you go above the legal limit, first violation will be a $50 fine. After that's a $150 fine. And then if it's a third violation within one calendar year, you get a $200 fine. This is a massive decrease in the war on drugs and the old antiquated laws that are still sitting on the books from the war on drugs. Some of the things that the new law will not be changing include, well, anything for the medical people. If you have a medical card, you're still going to, be able to be part of a medical program. And on top of this, what was I even talking about? I'm stoned. Public consumption is still going to be something that's forbidden. That's well in line with our alcohol laws and other substances. And there's still vaping regulations that are coming down the line on a federal level that are going to definitely affect the cannabis industry. A lot of the tax rates are also being kind of finagled in a way that helps the cannabis industry pay less taxes, which I'm normally not for businesses dodging taxes, but right now, so right now, Arizona Medical has a 6.6% state tax and then the 2 to 3% city tax. But that, of course, doesn't account for the federal taxes that are also paid by cannabis businesses, which is about double what a normal business pays. And so what the new law is essentially saying is that everything will just be taxed for recreational use at the same state tax rate for every other product. So if it's a food, it'll be taxed like food, and if it's another product, it'll be taxed just like any other product, which actually is better than what we have for the state nicotine taxes. The cigarette excise tax is $2.37 per pack, which is well over 6%. The reason I'm introducing this law is this is a subject that I'm going to be covering a lot in the next year. I just got a gig as a freelance contributor for the Phoenix New Times, so I'm going to be spending some of my free time now making some calls and digging around the cannabis industry so I can figure out what everybody thinks about this and what's going on and try to stay up on everything. We're going to be attending some of the events around town, some of the legalization events. I've been through this back in 2016. Honestly, I've seen this since I was a kid, back all the way in 1998. But we're going to go through and talk to some of the business owners, some of the users, and find out what everybody thinks about this moving forward. So stay tuned over the next few months. I'm going to have some articles to discuss on this channel related to that. We're also going to take some of the topics that I have on the website, Thought for Your Penny, make some more expanded videos on some of these deeper topics to kind of dig it and show you what we know. CES is coming up, so there's some tech coverage. Stay tuned for that. And I will have a ton of new interviews coming out with pretty much every big movie that's coming out over the next year. Subscribe to this channel. So that's all for now for our 2020 pot legalization watch in Arizona. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Thought for Your Pennies, Weed Please. Hit subscribe for more, hit the like button if you like what you saw, and leave any comments down below if there's any topics that you'd like me to discuss. Juul is another thing we'll talk about, and vaping in general.